I like to think VRChat is an introductory game to the virtual space, especially since it allows for non-VR people to experience what the platform's all about before they even need to buy a headset. I know a plethora of people, myself included, who bought VR specifically only for VRChat, something I mentioned a few weeks ago in a previous video. After years of playing, you start to understand the social cues and laws that come within the game that maybe for some don't come naturally. I'm not the only one to complain that VRChat doesn't really mention key mechanics that are popularly used by regular players when you first start your journey. Mechanics that I feel make a world of difference regards to your experience. So today, I compiled a list of these tips that I'd like to share with you, new or old, to further let you dive into our virtual home known as VRChat. Hello there everyone, my name is Nuoance, and to start this video I want to hear how you learned about the game. Was it from YouTubers, streamers, friends? The reason this is so important is because depending on your first impression, you'll have a different expectation, understanding, and experience when you finally decide to take that big jump into VRChat. But we both know you're not here to listen to me ramble on, so we're gonna jump straight into why you showed up. My personal suggestions on the most important things new players should know when getting into VRChat. This video is split into two parts, the mechanics side and the social side. I am also putting my usual disclaimer out here as I am in no way saying I am an authority on VRChat or of the community that runs it. I just know that for some, having a more direct answer can help them. If you disagree with these tips or perhaps you do things differently, that's perfectly fine. This is just a personal guideline for new players to get started, which then could help you customize your own experience to your tastes. Let us begin with the mechanics though. I've made this video before a couple years ago, and this is kind of a new coat of paint for it, but just like in that one, the very first thing you should do as soon as you download VRChat from Steam or Quest is to go to VRChat.com and actually make a VRChat account. I can't say how it works on Quest specifically, but Steam-made accounts on VRChat have a lot more downsides than up. Firstly, Steam accounts cannot rank up, which isn't that big of a deal. However, if you want to upload your own avatars or worlds, you cannot do that until you hit new user, so no rank up means no upload. The second reason for this is for those who haven't merged their accounts and are just using Steam accounts, you are going to be at risk of losing stuff in the future the later you do it. Losing favorites or friends is rare, but it is a possible error, so I recommend just merging it ahead of time and wait, 24 hours give or take, do it before bed or something to give it proper time to really combine both accounts. Though, minus that, VRChat ranks aren't really that important in terms of what you can do, but it is one of the most important things I can suggest to any player, since if you plan on sticking around, eventually you're going to want your own look. We'll be bringing up something later in the video known as safety settings, but for a lot of people, unfortunately, they automatically block or mute people who are visitor rank. So if you are always using a Steam account, it doesn't matter how long you've been playing, you will never rank up, and thus a lot of people will have you automatically muted. When playing VRChat, there are technically four different types of players: the desktop, the half body, the full body, and the Quest user. These are pretty self-explanatory, but just in case you don't understand the terminology, let's do a quick overview. A desktop user is someone who is playing VRChat without a VR headset, or maybe just not using it at that exact time. These players are easy to identify, but can see and respond to the same thing PCVR user can. Their movement and interactions are obviously a lot more limited, but besides the people who use it as a lazy way of interacting with friends, desktop users are pretty often people who just are getting started in the VR world and haven't made the first jump into buying it themselves. It's a great way to see if you even like VRChat before making that big purchase. Next up is half body. These are players who are using standard VR regardless of what type of VR. Half-body users can only use their head and arms to play the game, which is a standard for most virtual reality titles. These players are often those who either just didn't feel like needing to go deeper or use VR as the next step into the rabbit hole. The most popular milestone for VRChat users is the full body tracking. There are tons of methods to get full body tracking now, so many so that it'd be its own separate video to cover all the different options. Full body tracking is when a user has invested in trackers to follow at least their hips and legs to be tracked in VR, but could go even further with chest, elbows, knees, and even full-on suits. Most people stop here, but we can go even further with full face tracking, eye tracking, haptic suits, even Omni gear. Once again, if you want to dive deep into VR, you can dive deep and end up spending thousands of dollars for different tools to heavily alter your experience. But none of this is a requirement for a fun time. Finally, we have the Quest users, which is similar to Half Body, but for Quest. Quest and PCVR are two completely different builds, meaning that someone using an Index may see something completely different than a Quest user. Many of the worlds are limited to PCVR only because of the requirements put in place by VRChat, and more often than not, if you're a Quest user hanging out with a PCVR user, you'll be seeing their fallback avatar instead of what they're actually wearing. It's interesting that VRChat doesn't make this more clear, or maybe it is, but since I've been around since 2018, I don't really see it in the tutorial, but Quest and PCVR users see two completely different things. In regards to worlds, I've witnessed a few instances where the Quest version was a completely different version than the original PCVR one. Heck, I've been to worlds where the Quest users just saw an empty box. It's a bit insulting and infuriating when you think you found a nice space for everyone to hang out in, but turns out it's only nice through the computer. A very important thing you should keep in mind when trying to go cross-compatible spaces is that not everything is going to look the same, and just expect people to see something a little bit different at times. Another important thing to mention is that it is possible to use a Quest 2 as a PCVR headset with things like Virtual Desktop, AirLink, or Link Cable. VRChat would consider the headset a PC-compatible one, thus showing the full spectrum of the game. You can also see if a user is Quest or PCVR by opening up your quick menu and looking under the player's nameplate. If it says Quest, then that tells you that they are, well, a Quest user. If it says nothing, you're looking at a PCVR user. Mentioning the UI though, if you want a full breakdown of the UI menu, I have a video that'll be linked that will help you fully understand what each section does. It's a long one though. When I first introduced Maju to VR, we had a rough start because of the rampant motion sickness and trying to learn everything, and this is pretty normal for new VR users and something that you'll gain a bit of tolerance for over time. If you're new to VR and you're feeling a bit ill, just make sure not to push yourself. Take breaks when needed, stay hydrated, and don't eat a heavy meal right before. Learn the different motion mechanics and find which setup works best for you, and I also recommend sitting down at first until you get your bearings. If you want to go more in depth on trying to figure out what exactly causes your motion sickness, I have posted both YouTube shorts and TikTok videos that cover different types of motion sickness triggers, as well as some ways to handle yourself better. I'm also working on a video, I keep saying that, but it's actually almost done. Check that out in a couple weeks. You could also buy products to help like C-bands or Dramamine, and that will help the queasy keep at bay. So don't give up just because you've been feeling a bit sick after a few games. Everyone is different and has different needs, so for you it may just be taking a little bit longer to get used to, or you may just really need outside help in combating your sickness. Connected to that is for longer standing VR users, the VR Switch sickness. When I upgraded from the Rift to the Index, I got super sick for about a week of playing. I actually almost went back to my previous headset, it was so bad. Same thing when I got a Quest 2 for work. So if you're changing up headsets, you may get sick again. It's just because each VR is set up a little differently, and those small differences really can get to you. This once again doesn't happen to everyone though, but I'd like to mention it just in case somebody upgrades and thinks, oh, it's not as good as I thought it was. But do you know what does happen to everyone? Lag. VRChat isn't known for its optimization because, well, anyone could upload things, which, quick note, if you want to know how people are able to make and upload their own content, the quick and easy answer is that most work on the models through Blender, but Unity is where the magic happens. There are tons of tutorials online on how to do this, but after a very quick search, I'd recommend this video. Anyways, because not everyone cares about optimization, this means that more often than not, you may be lagging in public areas or populated spaces. There's also people who do purposely upload things to make other people lag out or even force you out of the game, known as crashers. VRChat has settings that allow you to customize your own safety settings on who you see and who you don't, known as the, well, safety settings. It may not be an original name, but it gets the point across, and that's all that matters. There are some preset options available for you, however, personally, I use the custom setting and hide everyone besides friends. Once again, I go into heavy detail what each of these sections mean in my UI menu tutorial, but they all have their own descriptors that can help you too. I do highly recommend for new players keeping at the very least particle effects off for everyone but friends, and maybe even animations, but it's obviously based to your discretion. That's not the only thing to save your frames though. You could also have people's avatars hidden based off of distance or amount visible. In your quick settings menu, there's a section labeled performance that usually will have sliders all the way up. The lower the bar, the more people that are hidden. The first bar is by distance, hiding people when they're out of your bounds. And the second is for amount, hiding everyone but the nearest number that you choose. Both of these help greatly when you're in a space with a lot of people, as Maju learned painfully when she showed all the avatars nearby during an event and crashed so hard, she had to give her computer a little bit of a vacation. And if for some reason you're still struggling and have catered to your safety settings to your best preferences, it may be time to look at performances of the avatars specifically you can see. Each avatar has a performance ranking from excellent all the way down to very poor. When you open up your quick menu, you can see the performance rank of everyone around you that you can already see, thus be able to quickly tell who has an avatar that may be a bit heavier than what you can handle. An important disclaimer here, though, is that these performance ranks are not 100% accurate. There are people who have uploaded excellent models that will blue screen a computer, and very poor models that are perfectly fine but have very few polys over the limit. But in general, it's a good guideline to give you an idea what may be limiting your frames. Those who break the mold are a pretty rare occurrence. Minus for optimization, these rankings are important if you're planning to join private events hosted by hundreds of communities within the game. Many of them require a certain performance rank to participate, so if you're unaware and just come in wearing something that lags everyone out, you may be asked to change or leave. With that, it's also important to mention that many people will have their safety settings to hide pretty much anyone they're not friends with and only show others they're having a conversation with. I'm one of those people. So someone may not see you as you see yourself, or if your avatar is exceptionally a pain in the butt with particles, music, animations, all that jazz, they may just hide you instantly. I recently hosted an event where someone was trying to get my attention to show me avatars that would lag me out, and I told them more than once to cut it out because people were lagging and that I was gonna hide their avatar if they just kept doing it. They still continue to try and change into different things with different animations, and I got frustrated, so I hid their avatar, and they got pissed off because nobody reacted to it. Unsurprisingly, some people don't like it when you do screen covering effects without their consent. And if even after all this you are still struggling in certain situations, it may be time to take into account things that aren't really in your control. The world you may be going to might be too laggy for you. Your computer may need upgrading, or perhaps you're on Quest in a space that wasn't really made with Quest in mind. So even if it claims to be Quest compatible, it may not be optimized for Quest compatibility. Most of the worlds in this game are made by people who are doing this as a hobby versus as a job. Many of us are beginners who are bumbling around to learn new techniques, and that means pretty often the maps you go into aren't actually professional grade, and the result is less than optimal, or even broken scenarios. Keep in mind that no one is obligated to make content in VRChat, so you shouldn't expect perfection. Heck, you should be prepared for some bumps along the road because many detailed worlds are a one-person build. It can be exhausting learning how to do everything by yourself, but it really pays off when you see something you built be populated with people who are enjoying what you've done. However, with large groups also comes loud sounds, and for many people that may be overwhelming to listen to or hard to hear when everyone's screaming over each other. Luckily, in your Quit Audio menu, there's a setting known as earmuffs. For my guys, gals, and non-binary pals, you can now muffle everyone within a radius, just like how the avatar reticle works. With earmuffs activated, you will see a red ring, followed by a white ring that follows you around. The white ring represents the fall-off. As people outside of it you cannot hear, but the people in between it and the red ring are slowly getting louder the closer they are. The people in the red ring are those you can hear perfectly normal, like when using the default settings. You can also turn off the visual aid if you hate looking at it, but since I usually use it during events, I like to remember my space and customize the distance depending on who's being loud where. This also works for avatar audio, which is a neat little touch. Of course, if someone's right up against you, then earmuffs won't do so well and you'll just have to mute them. If you open up your quick menu and select someone who's being particularly loud or quiet, you can actually look at their quick settings and make them louder or quieter for you without messing with the audio settings too much. Or you could just straight up mute them. This quick menu is filled with settings that affect the specific person you've selected and really makes a huge difference, so I highly recommend you familiarize yourself with the options there. Cough cough, once again, UI menu tutorial, got you covered. But for new players, you may notice that these up-close and personal people sometimes will just disappear. It's like the new Among Us VR game. You get too close, they away. This is from your personal space settings, which can be deselected in your comfort and safety settings in the full UI menu. This menu tab in general has a ton of helpful tools, so you should do a look around and see what things you could mess with to best fit you. I once again refer back to my UI menu tutorial. Detailed descriptions if you want to spend time being a navigation pro. It was like an hour and a half long, and that took me days to finish, so hey, please watch it. I worked hard. Anyway, personal space is just a way to keep people out of your own bubble. You can't really customize it, but it is a great way to have on you if you don't like people up in your business. Though for the most part, it's preferred off because how often it makes people disappear. It also doesn't work with friends, so keep that in mind. This setting is defaulted to on for some reason, a gruesome reminder when Maju's friend was new to the game and kept mentioning that people were disappearing all around them. It can get frustrating trying to teach new players all of the little settings that we've come to understand over time, but at least we don't get the camera comments from Quest users anymore. In my old video, I was a little bit sassy with the camera. I would constantly get comments and grabs at my camera from Quest users because at that point, they didn't have a camera for their build, so they didn't know what it was. Fortunately now, you can get a camera to use, but at least in terms of taking photos. Quest users still can't use the stream option, which is how I record all of my videos personally, but at the very least you're now able to take photos of memories a lot easier. Same with desktop users. Speaking of desktop users, another small thing I'd like to mention is that in certain worlds, like popularly acclaimed Drinking Night, you'll see a menu at the top left on your screen that is only visible through desktop or through the VRChat window on your computer. VR users can't see it, but these settings allow you to make camera changes among other things to further elevate your gameplay experience. This is not a VRChat standard and not every world will have it. Lastly, for the mechanics side of things, is VRChat Plus. VRChat Plus is a subscription-based benefit that gives the players different perks for their account. For $10 a month, you can have features such as more favorites for worlds and avatars, a nameplate icon, and the ability to make VRChat groups, and the photo invites. So for those who want to be able to rank up quickly, VRChat allows you to rank up quicker than a standard user. For example, a friend went from new user all the way to a known user just from purchasing 1 month of VRChat Plus. You don't really need VRChat Plus to enjoy the game, and more benefits are supposedly on the way. With that though, let's move on to the social side of things. These are all tips that I have accumulated over years of playing the game and are imparting onto you, my little social awkward viewers. Because Lord, nothing's worse than feeling out of place and having no idea what's going on around you. I would know from experience. Firstly, this is mainly a desktop issue, but please, people may not use the personal space setting, but that does not mean you gotta be right in their face to talk to them. Treat it like real life. Actually give people space to breathe. How would you like it if I was just talking to you like this the entire time? How's it going? Where are you guys at? There you are. It's weird. I can't see nothing. Or you can't see nothing. I see a camera. Sure, it may just be a game, but it's also really weird when you're right up against someone you don't even know, and it'll usually end up getting you blocked or at least hidden. One of the many reasons for this is a phenomenon known as phantom sense. And I really need to remake my old video on it since that video is so old I don't even remember if it was good or bad, but in simple terms, phantom sense is when people think they can feel what is happening on their avatar. Whether you believe it to be real or not, science has proven that people can feel pain or other sensations on limbs that aren't there in real life, known as phantom limbs. And if you don't trust science, well, that's not my fault. I'm not gonna say that people online don't lie about their effects, because 100% that's a popular problem that we'll go into for a few minutes. But in general, phantom sense is real and has varying effects depending on the person. For example, I have a small bit, but only in spaces that I've gone through trauma, so my fight or flight activates in an attempt to keep myself safe. A dear friend of mine has stabbing trauma, so when someone comes at her with a knife, she'll have a PTSD attack and go back to the time where she was actually stabbed. Another friend is sensitive on the back of his knees and will jump up if people get too close to touching them. I like to compare it to when you've been balancing on 2 chair legs and the chair starts to dip back a bit further than you'd like and you just save yourself last minute. You didn't actually fall, but you experienced the sensation of falling and your body had a response to prepare for that. Not everyone has phantom sense, and many people like to accentuate their reactions to things happening in the game. In general though, it's just good manners to make sure you aren't getting in the personal space of others or be at risk of being blocked. If you're getting on the game to troll and harass players, well, don't be too upset when they just block you and move on. Just like players who harass mirror dwellers, you're a drop in the ocean for long-time players and they aren't even affected by that stupid crap anymore. There are people out there who think that just because their actions are online and that they're anonymous, it gives them a free pass to act however they want. This is an important tip for internet in general, not just VR chat, but there are people who are going to lie to make themselves seem cooler or more pitiful. The internet is filled with main characters who want to be the center of attention, and thus will make their stories more dramatic for said attention. I knew someone who claimed they were kidnapped and were sold to the mafia, only then to move to Japan and become the centerpiece to building a relationship between the Japanese Yakuza and the American mafia. And she wasn't even kidding either. This same girl also claimed she had enough money that she bought 2 of every VR headset, but didn't have full body, stating that she was just too lazy to do so. You can get the picture of what kind of chick that she was. There are always going to be people who lie online, and this is just a general safety tip to remember not to believe everything you are told. People lie about their age, their job, their life, every day to get what they want. Use general common sense, stay safe, and keep everything you're told with a grain of salt. The same goes with trauma dumping. If you've met a new friend who seems to only tell you when bad things happen, you've met a trauma dumper, my buddy. They leech off your good mood and validation as a way to cope with whatever demons they have going on personally. I have a video going more in depth about this, but in general, protect your peace and remember that you are never responsible for someone else's feelings, no matter how hard they try to pin it on you. But meeting people comes with the hardest part of VR chat, finding a place and players to build connections with. I just had a rant about how groups aren't being used to their full potential, but if you are new and trying to find something to do, Converse is always open to anyone and hosts 4 times a week with a variety of content for you to enjoy. We just got our own custom invite link too, which has been my current excitement. VRChat is filled with different communities that do all different kinds of things, so if you already know loosely what you enjoy, like the game Ghost for example, there may be some groups that are being promoted within that world. Or populated worlds like Drinking Night and Just Be Club will always have posters promoting different communities that do different kinds of things. There's also Twitter, which accounts such as VRChat's Party Hub who focus on promoting on different kinds of events for you to check out. That's also not covering VR conventions that have started to grow within the past few years, which will have spaces dedicated to showcasing all different types of groups that are looking for new members. I firmly believe that a large chunk of people who leave VRChat when they're new is because they just didn't realize how much they could do. Having access to different kinds of entertainment and community may help combat this long time. Lastly, I think an important thing that every player should know is that at the end of the day, for most people, VRChat is there for us to have fun. If you are just starting to feel worse within the game versus enjoying yourself, it may be time to step away and realign yourself with the outside world. VRChat is tons of fun, but there is no need to completely ruin yourself over it. Don't let yourself be completely dragged into the virtual world that it becomes your entire personality. It's okay to enjoy it and spend time with it and have experiences in it, good or bad, but once you start replacing the you in real life with the you in virtual life, you need to take a little bit of a break. At the end of the day, we're all here to enjoy ourselves, so don't be the one who takes it too seriously. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that this updated video helps all users, new and old. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below, and make sure to drink your water, eat your broccoli, and have a fantastic day. See y'all in the next video. I can't fall backwards. A quick shout out to all of my REMs out there. Elise and Rackshaw, thank you so much for your continued support.